Well, welcome everybody to the internationally syndicated Last Christian radio show. My name is J.D. Williams, and joining me there from New York City, for those of you watching us on screen, on my left there, Mr. David Paxton. And David, I have no idea what we're doing today. I mean, I know I know what I want to do. I want to call this show "The Masses versus the Establishment" or something like that.
Yeah,
because
they're both evil.
You know, I mean, it's like the whole world isn't crazy, but the leaders of the whole world are insane, and they're not paying attention to anything that the people want, and they're shocked. And you're going to actually hear me report this in a minute. They're actually shocked at the results, that people are not happy with their performance. You know, Joe Biden is shocked that nobody's happy with his performance, you know, and I really don't know how to put it in show form, and that's the reason why we're kind of flying here by the seat of our pants. You know, we talked about that before we went on.
I love it.
But anyway, it's like the leadership is deaf. They're not paying any attention. Maybe they're just separated so far away that they really have no idea what's going on. Do you have any opening comments on that?
Yeah, absolutely. They clearly have no idea, but part of it is because they're willingly ignorant,
right?
Which means, and that doesn't necessarily mean stupid, but ignorant means you are completely unaware.
Right.
So they're unaware because they want to be. They bought into the elite system, and they're getting fed everything. I mean, if you look on X, you know, or even mainly X and that. Every time you come up, there's these people, they're influencers, and they're like, "Oh, Joe Biden's doing a great job," and it's like, "Okay, how much did they pay you? You're not really, getting your money's worth here. You can do something better than that." But that's all they're fed is people that they paid to say something nice.
Yeah.
So they just don't get it. They're not really out there in the world, you know, and so it's just here they are, and they want to be that way. They want to hear all the good things. They're itching ears, as the Bible says.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. The living in the bubble thing. I mean, we've heard that for decades, I guess. You know, that whenever a president goes into office, they live in a bubble. They only hear what from the people that they want to hear from. And those people that they want to hear from don't want to tell them anything they don't want to hear because they want to keep their job. And I think that is really what has happened to the entire world right now. And the people, the me and yous out there, have a completely different view than the leadership. And here I'm not pointing at Democrat, Republican, or whatever party. I'm pointing to all of them. They're all insane, all of them.
It pretty much. I mean, all the parties have been infiltrated. Granted, there's some people in there that try, but I got friends that ran for offices and pretty high offices, and if you're not towing the line, they don't let you in.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that, and they'll find a way to get you out. But remember that show, The Twilight Zone?
Yes.
And it was Anthony, and he would send people to the cornfield.
So I'm not familiar with that one.
Everybody would be nice to him. Anthony would go like this. It was Opie. He played Anthony on the Twilight Zone. He'd go,
okay.
And then people would be out in the middle of the cornfield dressed as like a scarecrow. And then his sister, he took her mouth away because his sister was yelling at him. And everyone was terrified of him. And I think that's what these people are doing. They're just terrified to do anything because they might feel the repercussions. They might get Clintoned.
Well, it seems to me like they're picking the craziest stuff to be in support of, and then when their countries say, "Well, we don't really support that," then they just pretend everybody does, and they just move on with it, and they keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. What is that called?
Well, that's just that's part of the deal. Like Albert Pike, we know Al, right? Remember Al? The 33-degree Mason, and he set all the rules in place. Yeah. They plant this dichotomy. So they are so far to the left that even libtards think it's way too far left. That's how bad they want to make it on purpose, because this way they can have the people fighting. And if the people are fighting each other, they're not going to fight them. And then they're going to send in the hero. See, that's why we got to be careful of the hero.
Yeah, the hero.
They're going to supply the hero, and then he's going to be great. I mean, what's the story of the Antichrist? He's a pseudo-Christ. He's going to come in and solve everyone's problem. He got a peace plan. No one's fighting anymore. Hey, look at this. 3.5 years in, boom.
Yeah.
It hits the fan.
Well, now, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there going, okay, what in the heck are y'all talking about? So I'm going to play you a couple of clips for you. This one is from France. Okay. Now, remember, the European elections were held over the weekend. As a matter of fact, they're still counting votes as we go here. So there's a lot of people that are still hoping for something. But, I mean, come on. Polls are closed. It's too big to rig. All that kind of good stuff. Okay, so
we're closing 2022.
Yeah, for real. Okay, listen to this one real quick.
Emmanuel Macron has called a snap election in France in response to a victory for the right in European polls. Marine Le Pen's National Rally Party is on course to win around a third of the vote in European Parliament elections. President Macron dissolved Parliament and called national elections for 30th of June and 7th of July, as Ross Cullen reports from Paris.
This is a sudden decision. Now, this is a really dramatic move by the French president, and now we have to try to fit in a snap general election campaign before the Olympics get underway here. He really has said, look, if the votes are there for the far right at European Union level when it comes to France's MEPs, perhaps the votes are there for the far right at a domestic level. And so he is putting his trust in the electorate to go back to the polls at the end of the month to vote for a new batch of MPs.
Okay. Now, just a little explanation needs to go in here because you heard two different dates there. Okay, June 30th and the other one, July 7th. The June 30th is the actual election, and then the July 7th is for a runoff. Because they have so many candidates, there's no way anybody is actually going to win the election the first time around, so they're going to have to hold another election. That's the reason you got two of them. But can you imagine President Biden calling a snap election in the United States, and everybody in America goes to vote on June the 30th, and then assuming that RFK Jr. or somebody prevented them from having a clear 50+1 majority, everybody goes back for a runoff election on July the 7th. Can you imagine that happening in the United States, the chaos that would be involved with that?
Can you imagine? And we're allowed to have guns here in America. So just imagine the problem.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's a snap election. What are you talking about? We don't have snap elections here. It's the same as the kangaroo court we had here a couple weeks ago.
Well, now this guy, this Emmanuel Pellerin, he's a lawmaker from Macron's Renaissance Party. He said, we're still in shock. Now, this is what I'm telling you guys about. We're still in shock that we didn't win. Okay, we went from first place to fifth. Okay, and they're in shock. Now, again, this is the masses have a completely different idea of what should happen in France as opposed to Macron, who had never held any office before in his life and just kind of goes along to get along. Okay, he's unlike Trump, who went in and tried to straighten things out and get things going the right way. He went in and tried to destroy it, just tear it all down, sort of like what Biden's doing. Okay, now, let's see. Among the policies going forward by this RN policy, or RN party, I should say, are higher public spending. I think there's a lot of liberals get along with that one fine. And this is despite significant levels of French debt. Then, let's see, they want to expel more migrants. They want to stop family reunification. They want to restrict child care benefits to French citizens only, give French nationals preference in access to social housing and jobs, and withdraw residency for migrants who've been out of work for more than a year. Now, honestly, the majority of that sounds pretty reasonable. Am I reading that wrong or what?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the right is asking for that.
Yeah, and that's who's winning. In all these elections, it's the right that's winning. The left they're coming up losers, and they're trying to figure out why.
Well, why didn't you vote for me?
Yeah, it's crazy. Okay. All right, here's one from home. Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, Nance. Mm-hmm. She's still kicking, huh?
Well, no, she's getting. I got two stories on her. This one is confirmed. I got another one later.
Nancy Pelosi is what happens when you take NyQuil and DayQuil at the same time.
Yeah, well, okay. I'm going to leave that one right there. Anyway, she said that inviting Prime Minister Netanyahu to speak before Congress is wrong and sad. She said, let's try to have a two-state solution to make peace in the region rather than coming to the Capitol to draw protesters. I don't get it. It's crazy. Now, she said, we all love Israel. October 7th was terrible. Hamas is a terrorist organization. They are dedicated to the destruction of Israel. The hostages are not free. The people of Gaza are suffering. We need to help them and not have Netanyahu stand in the way for such a long time. So, according to the Times of Israel, U.S. lawmakers have scheduled Netanyahu's address to Congress on the 24th of July. It says here that nearly 60 Democrats boycotted Netanyahu's last joint visit, and even more are expected to boycott it this time around. Any comments on that?
We don't need him around. I say, get rid of him. Good riddance to you. You don't work anyway. You might as well stay home, and then people could see what you're really made of. Again, it's going to backfire because then, look what happened with the Trump trial. Everything they try and do to push their views, people push back harder.
Again, was right back to the masses versus the top guys.
Yep.
I mean, it's over and over and over again. What the vast majority want, they're against. And what the vast majority are against, they want. And because they're in charge, the masses have to deal with it. It's like...
Yeah, they shouldn't be in charge either.
Like AOC's Green New Deal. Okay, they're really pushing really hard to have these electric cars, and only 2% of the population's even slightly interested in owning one. And of the 2% that's slightly interested in owning one, about 90% of them can't afford one. Mm-hmm. And if they actually implemented it, the grids couldn't handle it, and we wouldn't have electricity. I mean,
yeah. And then they tell you got to shut your air conditioner off.
Yeah.
At the same time, you buy this electric car. At the same time, you shut your air conditioner off. Like, it's just retarded to the max.
It's one stupid thing after another one. Okay, it's one stupid thing after another one. Okay, here's some more elections.
Mm-hmm.
Exit polls in the Netherlands project left-wing parties narrowly outperformed the right-wing Freedom Party. The Netherlands was the first country to head to the polls during the European elections, with voting across the bloc slated to finish on Sunday. Analysts have been predicting a strong performance from right-leaning groups across the bloc, as William Denzelo reports from Brussels.
The Dutch anti-immigration Freedom Party has followed its win in last year's national elections by making the biggest gains in voting for the EU election. The PVV is projected to have won 7 seats, while Labour and the Green Left are slated to have secured 8 in the European Parliament. Both sides are heralding it as a win, with the Labour leader saying this is a sign that left-leaning parties shouldn't be discounted this election. More than 370 million people across the 27 European Union members will have the chance to vote over the next few days, to select 720 members of the European Parliament. Ireland and Czechia vote today, with the rest of the EU states heading to the polls over the weekend. William Denslow, Brussels.
So you heard there the percentages, not even 33%, not even a third is considered a majority. I mean, that's significant. Okay. And I don't know how to address that one. I mean, you got, in a way, it's a good thing the United States only has two political parties. In a way, it's bad because you only have two choices. But,
well, that was done on purpose too.
Well, yeah. I think it was smart up until recently, but now I'm not so sure. I don't know if you want to comment on that or not.
Not really. I mean, right from the beginning, it was designed to so they can control only two people, as opposed to trying to control a bunch, because then anybody could just run willy nilly. So that was kind of built in from the beginning. But the Bible talks about this real at the Church of Laodicea, and the church is indicative of society. And Laodicea, as we did talk about before, is where the people make the rules. So when we talk about, they're always talking about the democracy and people vote and this and that. Yeah. People voting is basically a mob rule. So, and the vast majority of people have it wrong anyway. So if we just implement what man wants because we're going to vote it in, it becomes a problem. All through history, especially Israel's history, even though they wanted a king, right? So, but the judges, the period of the judges, they were basically the rulers, and God was the king. Okay, these are the rules set down by the king. It's in the Bible, and the judges would adjudicate according to those rules that were in the Word. And they're like, no, we want a king. So he says, okay, well, this is what it's going to be like. But it was also in his plan, because now Jesus will sit on the throne of David, and he is that king again. So God will rule again. And that's what we need, is a monarchy of the perfect righteous man. And that's the only thing that's going to solve all this, honestly. People keep putting their hands in there, and the more they put in, you see what happens. The corruption just overflows from the man's heart.
Yeah, well, they both sides right now, both Democrat and Republican, are saying, if the other one wins, democracy in America is dead, and all this kind of stuff. and the thing is that we are not a democracy. Me and you have talked about that before on the show. This is a constitutional republic, and now initially, David, the people didn't even vote for president. The states did that, and I don't remember. It's been too many years. How all that was set up, but it was not, everybody getting to vote. That came later, and maybe we should have stuck with that system. I don't know. Like I said, it's been a long time since I thought, read about it, studied it, or anything like that. It was probably high school, maybe somewhere in there. That's decades ago.
Basically, that's where we get the electorate from. We have all the board of electorate. And you get electoral votes. And basically, they were the ones that voted. But then they said, okay, well, we'll have all the people vote, and then however the people vote, that's how these...
that's how the electors...
That be the way either.
And they're doing away with that.
Well, they should each one of those, if say you got 15 of them, each one should vote the way they feel they should vote as a representative of the state, not all of them voting exactly the same.
Yeah, well, I remember in 2016 when Donald Trump won the presidency, there was a big push going on about, let's just let the electors vote whoever they want to, no matter what the state did, as a way to keep him out. And I'm just going to go out on a limb. It's going to be about 10 times worse if he wins again. I really believe that. I don't know if you feel the same way or not, but I feel like that they'll do everything possible and maybe a few things impossible to make sure that he doesn't serve, even if he wins all 50 states. I'm not saying he's going to win all 50 states, but even if he did,
I wouldn't be surprised. Reagan did that, didn't he?
49-1, yeah, 49-1.
So, I mean, it's here we are. We're at the end of the age. What do we expect?
Yeah, yeah. And again, it's just the masses versus the elites, and I just, I keep coming back to it, but that's exactly what it is. Okay, listen to this one. It's just even more. Right.
In Italy, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's party came out on top in the European elections with more than 28% of the vote. That strong result for the Brothers of Italy, though, wasn't repeated by Meloni's right-wing coalition partners. Giles Gibson has more from Rome.
While the leaders of France and Germany are licking their wounds after these European elections, Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has only solidified her power base. The opposition Democratic Party had a strong showing, trailing the Brothers of Italy by only 4%. But Meloni's coalition partners, the League, saw their support collapse, falling from first place in 2019 to a distant fifth place this year. The focus now shifts to horse trading in Brussels, where Ursula von der Leyen is hoping to keep her job as European Commission President. In a radio interview after the results, Giorgia Meloni said it was too early to say whether she'll back von der Leyen for a second term. Giles Gibson, Rome.
So again, you can see that all these countries are surprised by the result of the elections that they're holding, and they're still not willing to listen to the electorate that cast the votes. I mean, I don't, like I said, I don't know how to explain this. I really don't. I mean, is it just like mass stupidity? If you if you get into government, you just become a complete imbecile, or what?
Mm-hmm. Damn, they're fed their bunch of lies, and they don't want to lose the power, and they can cry like babies. Because I mean, let's be honest, what else can they do?
Nothing. Yeah.
Right? They don't have any skills.
But,
they just say, hey, I'm going to be your ruler. Okay.
The thing is, if Biden wanted another term, really, I can tell him exactly how to get it right now. Reinstate all of Donald Trump's policies on the border. Undo every policy that you have established by your stroke of the pen since you become president. Revert everything back to Donald Trump's stuff. Implement it today, and it might make a difference by November, because your policy sucked so bad that they destroyed the country really fast. So maybe if you undo it, maybe you can win. Because if you don't, if you don't, then we're going to all be yelling "too big to rig," and I'll leave it at that. Too big to rig. Okay?
Yep.
Okay.
So where are we going now? This is fun.
Well, now we're going to go to Israel. Because, I'm just going to play them. Okay, we'll play them back to back here real quick.
Israel announced the successful rescue of 4 hostages held captive in 2 locations within Nuseirat, Gaza on Saturday.
The hostage recoveries followed a wave of airstrikes targeting central Gaza earlier in the day. Footage depicted numerous individuals receiving emergency treatment at Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital, the region's sole operational medical facility. Hamas condemned the events as an unprecedented brutal attack and reported dozens of martyrs and wounded in the streets, although exact casualty figures remained uncertain. Benjamin Wright reporting.
Well, now these reports are about Hamas, reported by Hamas. So, keep that in mind. In other words, there's no independent reporting there. All they get is the people that are actually in the region that happen to be members of Hamas. Another thing that they're not going to tell you is that, yes, it was brutal. The fight was rough. But it wasn't just Israel going in there and shooting up everybody. It was them trying to defend themselves against all of the artillery and all of the fighting that was going on against them. It was a brutal battle. Israel just happened to win. And they don't like that, and they had a lot of their terrorists killed. I'm sorry. I got something for you.
Womp, 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 womp.
That's what I think should happen to every Hamas terrorist. Every one of them. Okay, I got no sympathy for them, not a drop of sympathy.
And we can take them away in a ambulance.
There you go. Okay, so
here's the deal, though. With them, I mean, you hear again, people just don't have any brains. Like, oh, how many? how many people did you have to kill to rescue the hostages? What are you? Something wrong with you?
Yeah.
How many people did they kill to take the hostages? And here they are. Why don't you just give the hostages back and we won't kill you?
Why don't they just surrender? Yeah, just
exactly.
surrender.
Just say, hey, you know what? We're sorry. Here's the hostages back. I guarantee you, Israel will stop bombing them.
Yes, they will.
And that's just dumb.
Yeah.
So, and it was the house of a journalist. So these unbiased journalists, that's where they were holding this girl.
Yeah.
In the journalist's house. Because, you're not allowed to fire on a journalist.
Well, there's a lot of reports coming out about that, where they're saying that a lot of these hostages are being held by Hamas citizens.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting a lot of reports. I mean, none of them are confirmed. You can't confirm anything in Gaza. Nothing. But there's too many reports coming out to not think that it's true. That's the only thing I can say about that. But anyway, I told you there was 2 reports. Well, actually, this other one isn't much of a report, but this one is all that they had to say about it after this rescue and all that. You got Gantz, Benny Gantz, whatever his last name is, there in Israel. He used to be the prime minister, I believe, at one time, and he wants to be the prime minister again. And so he was going to make a big statement over the weekend, but then they had this hostage rescue. So he postponed it. He postponed it for a day, and then he did this.
And Israel's War Cabinet Minister Benny Gantz has resigned from his position in Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's emergency government and called on Netanyahu to hold elections.
That's it. That's the whole report.
Snap elections again.
Yeah, he wants elections called because he thinks he can win. The polls in Israel show that Netanyahu is not really all that popular right now, and that's because of the way their government's set up, and their court system has gone kind of nuts and all. Anyway, we'll talk about it more in the second half of the show. Got a couple more written reports here. And then, David, I know you want to try to get this into Bible context, and I do too. That's really what I'm hoping that we can get into in the second half there. So, anyway, if you guys will just hang in there with us, we will be back with the second half of Last Christian right after a very short break. And hopefully we can make sense out of some of this stuff. We'll be right back.
From Feature Story News in London, I'm Simon Gaitan. Hamas has agreed to a UN resolution backing a truce plan for the conflict of Israel in Gaza, according to a senior Hamas official. Sami Abu Zuhri reportedly told news agency Reuters that Hamas accepted the deal, which includes a 6-week ceasefire, withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza, and exchange of hostages and detainees, but called on the US to ensure Israel abides by the terms. Zuhri, who is based outside Gaza, said the definitive word on the deal was still needed from Hamas's leadership inside Gaza. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken called it a hopeful sign. 4 US college instructors have been wounded in a stabbing attack in China. The team from Iowa's Cornell College is in the country as part of an exchange program. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
China is downplaying what took place, saying that it was an isolated incident, but there's been plenty of reaction in the US expressing considerable concern about this attack. We've heard from Congress members in Iowa, the state from where these 4 instructors came from, saying that they are horrified from the incident. The state governor also saying she's doing all she can to bring these 4 Americans back home. It comes at a time when China is engaged in a PR policy to try and encourage more exchange students to China, but also at a time when the State Department is urging Americans to reconsider travel to the country. This could cause a diplomatic headache now for both countries. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
The Vice President of Malawi and 9 others have been killed in a plane crash in the southeastern African country. The flight, carrying Vice President Saulos Chilima and 9 others, went off radar after leaving the capital Lilongwe on Monday morning, according to the President's office. US President Joe Biden and a host of other world leaders are set to arrive in southern Italy on Wednesday for the G7 summit. They have a busy few days ahead of them, including trying to reach a deal on how to use $300 billion of frozen Russian assets to help Ukraine's war effort. Our Rome correspondent Giles Gibson has more.
Leveraging frozen Russian assets in the West, the war in Gaza, the effects of the Chinese economy's overcapacity, those are just some of the global issues that G7 leaders will discuss during this PAX summit. It's taking place at a luxury hotel in the southern region of Puglia. The Italian presidency has also invited Pope Francis to discuss artificial intelligence, plus other guests such as the leaders of India, Brazil and Ukraine. The host, Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, is also coming off the back of a strong set of European election results, with her party, the Brothers of Italy, topping the polls. Giles Gibson, Rome.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
And welcome back, everyone, to the second half of Last Christian. My name is J.D. Williams, and joining me there from New York, Mr. David Paxton. David, now, we're going to get into Gaza. We talked a little bit in between the first and second half, and trying to figure out, something to really tie this all together. And you came up with a good one. I mean, for those of you that are following along with the Bible, turn to Amos. The book of Amos. I know it's probably hard to find, and even it took me a second. I'll be honest with you. It took me a second to find Amos, because that's one of those books that I don't read a lot.
It should be in the beginning, right?
Right, but it's not. So anyway, we're going to get there here in just a minute. But before we do, I think it's important to let you know about a couple of things. You've heard where Nancy Pelosi is against Netanyahu coming to speak to the United States Congress for whatever reason. I don't know what her deal is on that, other than just trying to take, again, the wrong side. Like I said, the United States is going to do. The United States is eventually going to just pick the wrong side altogether, in my opinion. But I think Nancy's already there. Now, I'm having to hold this up, so hopefully, you guys kind of get over this, because it's the only way I can do it. See if I can even do it this way. This is from the United Nations Security Council that voted today to accept. This is 14 of the 15 members of the Security Council voted in favor of a proposal with Russia abstaining from this vote. This is a proposal by President Biden to tell the Gazans that they have to accept this ceasefire. And anyway, the Security Council voted yes on this stuff. The United States voted for this. Biden is the one that proposed it, so that's no shock. But what is a shock is that they are actually trying to force a ceasefire on two sides that they're not even involved in. The United States doesn't. We have nothing to do with Gaza, and neither does anybody else there except Israel, and Israel's not a part of the Security Council meeting. So why would they go along with it? And there's even a thing here that said that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said participated in a discussion of the Knesset Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee and commented on this deal that was presented to him. He said, "I will not be ready to stop the war. Despite what President Biden said, it has not yet been agreed how many hostages will be released in the first phase. We can stop the fighting for 42 days in order to return the hostages. We cannot stop the war. The Iranians and all our enemies are looking at us and want to see if we surrender." Okay, well, in other words, he's not going to agree to this. They're saying that this is an Israeli deal, but it's not. This is a Biden deal.
Exactly.
So I don't know how Biden is thinking that he can speak for Israel.
Yeah.
What's that about?
It's brazen, right?
It's crazy.
It's like, I got to find that one. Where's it say all the other countries are going to try and talk for you?
Yeah.
It's like, it's like, Yes, we need a mental clown to speak on our behalf. I don't think so.
You know, I don't want to. I don't want to come down on him real hard here, but
I do.
The man tried to sit down where there was no chair. There's no other way to. You know, there's no way to hide that. You know. Okay. All right. Now I've got a report here, David, and I told you about it before we started. I don't like doing unconfirmed reports where there's only one source. Having looked at this closer, and this is coming right off my phone today. Okay, so this is now. And having looked at this,
tell everybody, hey, this is unconfirmed, but it's really interesting.
It's
so we think you should pay attention.
It's really interesting, and it has to do with January 6th. You know, that's the Democrats' big deal. You know, there was some kind of insurrection at the Capitol, which there really wasn't. You know, it was just a protest, basically. But anyway, the Democrats have been going nuts on this thing. They had a special commission and all this other crap, okay? But they didn't provide much information, and they provided no information that would be helpful to anybody that wanted the truth, in my opinion. Okay, listen to this. This is a report that Politico actually, they got a hold of this, and they have played a few portions of it, but not the whole thing. This is moments after being whisked away from the U.S. Capitol after it was breached on January 6, 2021. The then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was captured on videotape declaring, "I take responsibility." Now, she then turned to Terry McCullough. Terry McCullough was her chief of staff. And she said, "We have responsibility, Terry. We did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. This is ridiculous." And all this is on videotape, a videotape that was recorded by her daughter, by the way. Okay, so it's hard to deny this. Pelosi also said, "You're going to ask me in the middle of the thing when they've already breached the inaugural stuff, should we call the Capitol Police? I mean the National Guard. Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with?" McCullough replied, as the Speaker's SUV raced through an underground parking garage, "They thought they had sufficient resources." Pelosi responded, clearly frustrated, "No, that's not a question of how they had. They don't know. They clearly didn't know. And I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more." Now, the Democrats here, they said that Pelosi's reaction to the Capitol, depicting the footage, was key quotes were not included by the outlet, and that's an HBO documentary, by the way. And I apologize. Like I said, I'm reading this on my phone, but trying to keep it short. Said how some of the key quotes were not scheduled, were not included in the outlet, which reviewed the footage independently. And one of the Democrat people here said, numerous independent fact checkers have confirmed that Speaker Pelosi did not plan her own assassination. Where did that even come from? I don't get that. 3 years later, House Republicans are still trying to whitewash January 6th. It's shameful, unpatriotic, and pathetic. That's what a spokesperson for Pelosi said. However, House Republicans said the footage undercut 3 years of Democrat-led narrative that January 6th and its failures was the sole responsibility of former President Donald Trump and followers. Pelosi's January 6th Select Committee spent taxpayers' money chasing false political narratives and using Hollywood producers for their investigation. Now, like I said, all of this is unconfirmed. In other words, I don't have 2 or 3 sources to back it up, but it sure looks legit. And if you go to this place is called justthenews.com. I get a lot of stuff from them, by the way, and it normally turns out to be right. They have the actual video. It's there. So I haven't had time to look at the actual video yet, But just going by history, I'm going to say it's probably 100% legit. What are your comments on that, David? That they're uncovering this, and it's Nancy Pelosi's own kid that did this stuff.
Well, it's like everything else. It's like Biden's daughter come out with her diary, and then they find Hunter's stuff. Well, now they're going to expose her too because she's part of the beast system. They just didn't think they can get a woman in for president, or else she would have run years ago.
Yeah.
Because she's bought out by them. But here's the deal: God will expose it. He says, "What you do in the dark will come out into the light." Mm-hmm. He's going to expose everything, even before they go on to the eternal judgment, so they can understand why they're there. So here we are. They buried that for how many years? 3 years now.
Yeah.
They just buried all of it, and then come out and like, oh, you're cherry picking videos. No, it's a video. It's there, and you guys were the ones that were trying to hide it. So it's just a matter of cherry picking.
It was them that did the cherry picking. Yeah, it was them. This thing here, from what I understand, is a full release, the whole video. Wow. So they didn't cherry pick. They presented. The Democrats cherry picked. Pelosi cherry picked. I mean, that's the.
But the devil's going to be the devil. So what are you going to do?
Okay. All right, I got one last report. One last one, and this is going to lead into what David's going to take the rest of the show to explain to you guys about Gaza. And this is the finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, has said that the disintegration of a unity government during a war is the latest statesmanlike act that exists. Gantz, Ezekot, and Troper decided to prioritize personal and political considerations over the national consideration, which requires unity to achieve the war's objectives and to provide support to IDF soldiers who are currently fighting in the field. And he says that his group takes responsibility for killing any kind of a Palestinian state. And they said that they will never approve a Palestinian state in Israel. So, again, we're going to Amos now. and anybody that wants to put this into a religious perspective, listen up. Here we go. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, so this is fun. Let's read it in the New American Standard, shall we?
Okay.
So it's real simple. It's Amos, and it's chapter 1. So he's talking about. So Amos is one of the prophets, and he's talking about the all that's going on in Israel and the prophecy of what's going to happen in Israel. So it says the words of Amos, who was among the sheep herders from Tekoa, which he envisioned in visions concerning Israel in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah, and in the days of Jeroboam, son of Joash, king of Israel, 2 years before the earthquake. So if you go back, you can figure out exactly when this was. So people can't say it was written later. So he said, so here's the prophecy. Check this out. The Lord roars from Zion, and from Jerusalem he utters his voice. And the shepherds' pasture grounds mourn, and the summit of Carmel dries up. Now keep in mind, Israel hasn't been there for 2,500 years, so clearly this is for the future at this time. Thus says the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Damascus, and for 4 I will not revoke its punishment, because they threshed Gilead with implements of sharp iron. All right, so have we heard about Damascus lately?
Yep.
And what are they doing? Because they threshed Gilead with implements of sharp iron. So we can imagine what that is. Says verse 4 says, so I will send fire upon the house of Hazael, and it will consume the citadels of Ben-Hadad. So it behoove you to go look those up, but they're all over there too. He's going to send fire down. And what do we start to see with some of that stuff? What kind of fire is that? Is that stuff falling from heaven with meteors? Is it bombs and nuclear weapons? Because they didn't even know what bombs were back then, really.
Right.
So if they're coming out of the sky, he's going to send fire down. Mm-hmm. And it says, I will also break the gate bar of Damascus and cut off the inhabitant of the valley of Avon, and to him who holds the scepter from Beth Eden. So who holds the scepter is, the ruler over there. Mm-hmm. So here we go. The ruler of Damascus is going to be some problems with him too. So the people of Aram will go into exile to Kir, says the Lord. So people think, oh, that's crazy. Those places don't exist. Yeah, of course they don't exist. You have to go back and look at where they were.
Right. And put in the modern name.
Now, they got different names now. Duh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's go look it up. But some of them are still the same. Some of them are different. So check this one out. And then Damascus is still in the same place. Oldest city in history. Mm-hmm. In verse 6, it says, Thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Gaza, and for 4 I will not revoke its punishment. Check this out. Because they deported an entire population to deliver it up to Edom. Whoa. So we're seeing them start
in mine, David, it actually says, for 3 transgressions of Gaza, and for 4 I will not turn away its punishment, because they took captive the whole captivity to deliver them up to Edom.
Yep. They took captive, they deported them, and then, so this is what they did. And they delivered to Edom. Edom is basically Islam.
Right.
And this is why they did it. They shout it all the time. If you look at their kids shows, all their kids shows are talking about how, what do you do when you see a Jew? Oh, stab, stab, stab. It's teaching these kids from when they're born to hate Jews for no reason.
Right.
And now, so they grow up and they think they're doing God's will. Sorry, Allah's not God. He's fake. But they're thinking they're doing his will and going and ridding the world of all these bad people.
Right.
So that's just a deception of the devil. And this is exactly what they're doing. And they went to deport them. So they took away these captives. They delivered to Edom. So I will send fire upon the wall of Gaza, and it will consume her citadels. All of her cities. And this is exactly what's happening right now.
Right now.
Boom. Right in Amos.
Yeah. It's incredible. But, the Bible's never been wrong. Not a single time. And here is some modern day current event type information that proves just that right now for anybody that wants to pay attention to it.
And we see that Gaza's been in there for a while. It talks about Samson. Samson went down to Gaza to get a hooker. So clearly it was part of Israel back then.
All
right. And Israel was there. How many thousands of years ago? Well, these people say, it's always been... No, he calls them the Philistines back then. And that's why they called it Palestine, because they wanted to just give a little jab to the Jews. About saying, they're Philistines, and they call them Palestine. That's where they got the word from. The Philistines were the evil ones. That was, Goliath of Gath. Goliath was a Philistine. And they would always, always, always just harass the Israelites. Always. It's the same people, same idea, the same everything. They just call it Islam today. So Hezekiah, remember Hezekiah?
Yes.
All right, so he was a dude. Remember, he got 15 extra years for praying, and then he kind of screwed up those years. But he was 25 when he became the king, and in the beginning, he did what was right according to his father David. So he removed the high places and broke down the sacred pillars and cut off the Asherah. All right, those are the phallic symbols that they worshipped down there.
Okay.
Yep. And let's jump on down. And so he trusted the Lord, and the Lord was with him in verse 7. Wherever he went, he prospered and rebelled against the king of Assyria. Oh, look at that. And did not serve him. And he defeated the Philistines as far as Gaza and its territory, from watchtower to fortified city. So he talks about Gaza back then. You see Samson in Judges. Judges 16:1, it says, Then went Samson to Gaza and saw their harlot and went into her. So, and then if you know the story of Samson, that's a interesting one. Go read that one.
Yeah, for real.
But he was down there as well. So Gaza's been in the mix of this mess for thousands of years.
Thousands of years.
This is nothing new that's going on now.
Yeah.
But Amos says he's going to burn them all down. And it kind of looks like he's doing that now.
Well, from the pictures I've seen of Gaza and everything that's going on there, I wouldn't want to be there. I would.
Yeah.
It's tore up real bad.
You know what I'd like to hear is I know we're getting reports out of Iran and Iraq of multitudes of Muslims that are getting dreams, and Jesus is coming to them in their dreams.
Yeah.
And I am curious to see how many of these Gazans or Philistines or whatever you want to call them, how many of them are actually having dreams with Jesus is coming to them. And then Hamas is not letting those stories out because they control the narrative that comes out.
Right. Well, that's something I can try to dig for, whether or not I have any success in it or not. That's a different story. One thing I did do, it's probably been 2 years ago, I'm going to guess. I ran across a story that we did on the show, and it was a Iranian lady who, she was brought up Muslim and all that stuff, and she had a dream. And somewhere or another got a hold, I don't remember the whole story, but anyway, she got a hold of a Bible and she read it, and she accepted Christ, and her and a friend of hers went and distributed Bibles. They actually contacted somebody in the United States to have them get Bibles in there some kind of way, and she distributed them in downtown Baghdad, and she got picked up by the Iranian police, and and thought she was going to die. They took them to prison and all that kind of stuff, and tried to get them to swear against God, and she wouldn't do it. And anyway, they got out. They live here in the United States now. It's a story. It's a story. I think I'm going to go back and see if I can find it again, because I think I can do excerpts of it again on the show. That. It kind of confirms what you've been talking about, David, that the people are getting these dreams, and it's changing their life, and it's saving them is what it's doing, and
saving them from hell.
I mean, there's no salvation from the Iranians killing them or whatever, but to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. So they're not really worried about it.
At that point, you kind of hope they do it fast, right?
Yeah, exactly.
How many years I got to sit here and put up with this? Let me go home.
Yeah. But I think that just kind of confirms what you're talking about. There's a lot of it going on. But of course, it's not going to get reported in the media. I mean, now if it was prayers about, dreams about Muhammad coming down and doing something, it'd be all over the media. But but not Jesus. They're not,
Hey, Muhammad's coming to get a new 6-year-old wife.
Man.
And he found a new goat. Anyway.
No, I just find that Amos, I haven't read that book in a long, long time. And, I even ask you off camera, whether or not has this been fulfilled, and no, it hasn't. And this is new. It's happening right now, and that's really cool, because again, it just confirms that the Bible is true, and hopefully somebody will realize that. Pick up the Bible, read it, and if you haven't accepted Jesus Christ yet, understand He's coming back for His church real soon. I don't know when. But I know He's coming back, and He said He would, and that's to get us out of here before God unleashes His wrath. So if you haven't accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, all you got to do is say, Lord, I'm a sinner. I ask for your forgiveness, please. And I'll follow you all the rest of my days of my life. I know that Jesus Christ, your son, I know he died for me. I know he spent 3 days in the tomb. I know he rose on the third day like he said he would. And I know he will keep his word. He will come back. He will get his church. And I want to be among them. I don't want to be here for the wrath. I don't want to be here for those 7 years. I know it's going to be the worst time ever, So, get me out of here. I accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And he is my hope. He's my only hope. And if you'll do that and just pray in your own words, and don't forget to say, in Jesus' name, please.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you will be saved.
It's all about his name.
David, go ahead.
So here's some interesting stuff. As the book of Daniel talks about, knowledge will increase, as the end of the age comes upon us. So when we're approaching that final 7 years, this is what he meant by it. Not just like random knowledge. I mean, we obviously we see more knowledge in the internet and stuff, but and you could gather more, but that's not really what he's talking about. He's talking about knowledge of the word and knowledge of prophecy. Right. He says that near the end, it will open up books. Okay. And Daniel said, it's not time yet, keep the books. But then in Revelation, God says, okay, now you can say everything, because he opens it up, except for that one little thunder that came out of heaven. So, don't say that yet. But now he is opening everything up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we talk about that every week. We have a discipleship Bible study, and it's basically about the things they really don't teach you in church.
Right.
So if you want to get on that, just email me at thehiddenday@protonmail.com, thehiddenday@protonmail.com, or you can go right to the website, thehiddenday.com, and you can actually contact me there, and I'll have a link up where you can join the study. So that's going to be fun and exciting. And then we're planning on doing a big old show that's not stuck to an hour about why we support Israel and what does that have to do with the rapture and all this millennial and premillennial and postmillennial stuff. What does all that mean?
Right.
So that's going to be a fun show, right, JD?
Yes, very much so. And by the way, the links to what David was talking about, the discipleship study, I started putting those into the YouTube and Rumble videos, so you can see that in the description fields there.
Yeah,
and
we'll have a new one this week, so make sure you look for it.
Yeah, and so I highly encourage everybody to please do that. I've got a new office and studio for those of you who haven't kept up with me along the way here, and it's under construction right now. So there's work going on as I'm doing these, and so I haven't been able to join the discipleship study the way I wanted to, but hopefully, maybe within a week or two, I'll be able to.
Yep, we'll get that office done, and we'll be on.
So,
they're all recorded too, and they're kept online, so you can watch that.
Yeah, I definitely do encourage everybody to take a look at that.
Get on the mailing list so you can see all the past shows.
Give the day and time on that again, David, for everybody.
So it's Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. And we'll send you the link out. But again, send me your email, thehiddenday@protonmail.com, and we'll get you on the list. You can see all the existing videos and catch up, and then join the live Zoom studies as we move forward.
Amen. Yeah, I highly recommend it, and I know it's growing, and I know it's going to continue to grow. That's for sure. All right, the next show we have for Last Christian is David's comprehensive Bible study. We hope that you'll join us for that. Until then, good night and God bless.
Thanks again for joining us today for the Last Christian Radio Show. And be sure to tune in every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday right here and at www.lastchristian.net. Until the trumpet sounds.
Put a frog in boiling water and it'll jump right out. But put a frog in cool water and slowly heat it up, that frog will boil. As veterans, we tell ourselves the lie that we can handle anything. We let the water boil. You are not a frog. If you or a veteran you know needs support, don't wait. Reach out. Find resources at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach. Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.